On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we are back in the shop and the goal is to drive the WeGo and ride the Vectrix VX1. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo, and today I'm back with these two rare EVs, and we've learned a lot about them, and we've also let them charge for almost, I think a little over 24 hours now since we first rode the Vectrix VX1 and first got the old WeGo all hooked up here. So what we've learned about this is the charger on the Vectrix simply does not want to charge and probably won't charge properly until we get a real cycle on the nickel metal hydride batteries in this thing. And I'm also getting very tired of hooking the vice grips up to it so I can use this external charger to make it go farther and farther and farther. It's actually a big deal and also super dangerous. I got bit by the 144 volts on the VX1 one time and it didn't feel good. I can tell you that. It wasn't a big deal, but it didn't feel good either. It felt kind of like a normal shock from an AC circuit. And I got my hands off really fast. I ripped them right out of there. If you are working on one of these, just know there's quite a bit of energy in that pack and it will shock you if you get close to it. So what we need to do on the VX1 today is get these Meanwell chargers set up with some kind of better connection method. I also found out the chargers need to be powered on before you make the connection to the pack, because the pack is sitting at a pretty high voltage, around 120 volts even when it's low. And if you make that connection with them off, it throws a heck of a spark. So from now on, we'll be powering up the transformers and or the power supplies here and then connecting the bike. And we need to find a way to connect the bike externally so I don't have to tear the whole thing down every time we want to charge it, because you need to redevelop the memory in these nickel metal hydrides, even though they shouldn't have a memory like NiCads. But I think, you know, I've heard of this urban legend that nickel metal hydrides have memories too. So I think if we can get some cycles on them, this thing might come back to life. And also, I should note that we have figured out this is called the Vectrix VX1. The battery controller, motor controller, all that fun stuff was made in-house by a company called Parker. They went all in when they built this. They spared no expense, like I was saying. You know, Brembo brakes, really nice suspension. We found all those things first, but then we found out they spent a ton of money on a bespoke motor controller, and you can actually still download the software to program this entire bike, which is pretty crazy as well, even though it was written almost 20 years ago. But you can hook up to this thing and you can reprogram all kinds of parameters. You can change the charge limits. We just need to create a way to power this thing externally. So the game plan today is to drill a hole and run some additional wires and get this pack set up with a weather pack connector so we can just plug in the chargers and recharge it. And that should get us back on the road with the VX1. I'm excited about that. But over here on the WeGo, check it out. It's been charging forever, like I said. And this charger says charged, which is good news. And the big battery tender here says charged, which is good news. And you might also note that now, instead of charging each battery directly, I'm charging two in series there. So unfortunately, these are actually 8-volt batteries, not 12s. These are golf cart batteries at 8 volts. And to charge them, we had to do them in sets. So here's a set, here's a set, here's a set, there's a set, there's a set, and then there's the final set. And they're all showing charged, which means they're sitting around 12 volts, and the reality is we need them to sit at 16 volts. So the chargers say the car is charged and ready to go. It's not. There's a chance we can get the main charger to come on now, and that's what we're gonna try next after we check out the system voltages, do a little bit of troubleshooting here. But then I talked to my dad about it, and he's like, I've got a 24 volt charger. There we go, a 24 volt, an airplane charger is the answer, because we can do 3 at once on a 24, and then we only have to go through 4 banks of 3 at once. So first, let's see if the onboard charger finally kicks on, because it has not worked yet, no matter how many times I've tried, which has probably been 30 at this point. This is the first time all the batteries have shown charged. We're gonna try it out right now. Let's see what happens. So first of all, let's get a system voltage, because that is the thing that we care about here. And I found that if we let that just dangle there, it usually works very well. So we'll go ahead and let that, and we'll stick it back under the cap where I normally put it, and then put our positive over here on the big fuse. Come on, sit, sit, sit. There we go. We are now over limit. 75 volts, 77 volts, 75 volts. All right, that's something. Oh, I think these jumps are the battery tender checking to see if the voltage has dropped and then trying to recharge, but everything's seeing that it's okay at this point. So let's unhook all the chargers and plug it in. With all the battery chargers unhooked, we are at 68, 67.9, and we're not dropping too fast, 67.8. It is discharging, but let's see what happens when we go onto the big charger, the onboard. Okay. Green. Green. Please start, please start, please start. 118 volts. Nope, it failed. It failed. As always, it just keeps failing me. Well, the charger's unhooked again. Let's see if the car moves. There's always a chance that the actual motor controller works now. We put too much time into this for it to not work. So we'll stick the key in. Turn it on. Code 17. Code 17, we've determined is not good. Okay, I press the brake. Set brake. Oh, wait. Am I just doing this wrong? Do you have to press brake? Nothing happens. Well, it's time to hook the chargers back up and see if we can figure out what a code 17 means. All right, guys, it's time to build some weather pack connectors so we can make all of this work with the bike and its plug and play. It does need to connect at the same time, that way we're not throwing big sparks. And I'm a little bit long on my, just a little bit long. So we're gonna trim that off. Trim the fat. And now we're ready to install our pins, which are not meant for 12 gauge wire, but I've pulled this off quite a few times before. So we're gonna rock the 12 gauge wire, no worries. And now, start with position 4 and we'll crimp down. And we'll go to 3 and we'll crimp our strain relief here. These crimpers can be very annoying, because if you do it wrong, you're in trouble. So we're going from a 4 down to a 3, crimping tight. Crimping ain't easy. Strain relief. All right, so I think I did B is black for fun. Okay. B is black. A is positive. Clip this guy together. Put these together like so. And there you go. So this will all sit in the back of the bike now, and our wires here are gonna run down to the main pack. That should get her done. Our VX1 charging solution is just about finished. You can see I've got my weather pack connector that hangs out inside here. That's my feed to the pack, and it goes through the factory grommets and down through the factory holes, and everything should be nice and hidden going in the factory pack grommet. And then all I have left to do is the dangerous part now. It's semi-dangerous, not that dangerous. You shouldn't be scared of these things, but also maybe don't do it inside beside your cars like I am. But I'm gonna go ahead and pop the negative lead off the pack here, or either way, it doesn't actually matter. But we'll do it in order and put these two terminals on, and that should get us all set up. And then we'll rebuild the entire VX1, put it all back together for the first time. And I'm gonna zip tie these power supplies together so it's a better package as well. And we should have a good solution to take this thing outside on an extension cord and let it charge for hours. And that should get it on the road. I figure it just needs a deeper charge. It keeps going farther and farther. So after it charges, we're gonna ride it a long way. The VX1 is charging again. We've got the transformers hanging out back here with our power supply system that doesn't require tearing the battery cover off. I've had this battery cover off like 10 times now, and it's a huge pain. So finally, we don't have to tear the bike apart. It wasn't meant to come apart like this. It's meant for you to remove the entire bodywork and then the trunk, and then you can take the battery cover out. But if you bend this like super hard, you can see that's how it's always been done. You can get this out. So we are done with that now. We have direct taps onto the battery, and you can hear the power supplies screaming in there. So now it's finally time to tighten up all these 10 mil bolts to hold everything together, put all of the hardware back on, including the cables that lock the seat down and all that fun stuff. And then we'll finally be able to go on test rides without tearing this thing apart. In fact, we'll be able to ride it like it's a real motorcycle. So we're done with this surgery. Let's close the wound up. Of course, I had to take the VX1 apart twice just to get it put back together because the wires for the switch back here love to get stuck inside the battery cover, and then you can't get it back out without tearing the whole thing down. And I wanted it all to be hooked up, so I tore it all back apart and got it all hooked up right. So now we're ready to push this thing outside and get it on the charger for a very long time. At least overnight, maybe like 2 or 3 days. We're not gonna push it too hard, but I do wanna just put it on the charger for quite a while. Maybe even put it on a timer so it turns on and off every few hours. And then we just keep hitting it with the charger again and again and again until it starts to really come back to life. So she's all ready to go, and I'm only down 1 finger. So that's everything we needed to do to the scooter. It is ready to rock. Hopefully we get to go a couple miles after it charges for a day or 2. But the WeGo whip here, if you're ever working on one of these and you need to figure out the codes that it's reading out on the display inside, the motor controller is a Curtis 1238. So 1238. That will answer all your questions about what's going on. And code 17, the one that we just saw on the dash, is of course extremely low, or battery under voltage extreme or something like that. So that's good news at least. It's not like a faulted motor controller or anything that we're not expecting. We're expecting dead batteries, and obviously we could just put all new batteries in it and that would solve it immediately, but we don't want to do that. Let's run over to my dad's shop and borrow his 24-volt charger and start doing these in sets of 3. And once we're done, hopefully we can shock them back to life. If this thing drives out of my shop, I'm gonna be thrilled. And if we get to go like 1 mile after that, I'll be super thrilled. Woo, you can hear those old school chargers coming from a mile away. This thing is all transformer. Not to mention it weighs like 84 pounds. I rolled it on the scale because I was like, I gotta put this in the truck by myself. 84-pound charger. And it weighs so much, but I got it in the back of the truck. We got it over here. We got it on 24 volts. And she is ripping. There's the 24-volt section of our amperage. I'm sure it's crazy, crazy loud. We have slow charge off. We got it on 24 and max rate. So it is turned up and it is dumping 24 volts into these things. So we've got 24 across this row right now. Let's take a look at our system voltage. 77, it's not enough. We could definitely use more. It's crazy how much fluctuation there is too. It fluctuates all over the place. But we've got 77 on the system, and over here on this charger we have 24.92. So as long as this keeps ripping and we get through all 4 rows of this, I think we might actually have a chance of turning this thing on. And while it's charging, let's just try turning it on. All right, charge. No go. This charger sounds like when you walk into an old warehouse and there's like a million fluorescent ballasts. I know we don't have to deal with that really anymore because we live in a better time, but whew, it's so loud. Anyway, the Vectrix might have made some progress. Let's go find out. Well, I can tell you for sure that we are at the system voltage of 140 volts because these mean wells stop screaming the second they hit 140. And if we listen closely, there's no noise. I really want to go ride it right now, and I think I should just to kind of test it out, but at the same time, we should probably also leave it on here overnight and see if it actually gets a little bit of rain. The time has come for our first real Vectrix test. This is our real world long range test here. I know, kind of a joke, but it's been charging for 16 hours, and I think this will be the longest we've ever gone on this thing. So if we can get even 1,000 foot, I'm gonna be pretty happy, but I think we might be able to make it pretty far through the neighborhood. The only problem is it's a long walk back pushing this thing, and I have a feeling I'll be pushing it at about 45 seconds. Wow, it's not a bad seat. It is not a bad seat now that this thing's all put together. And she's waking up. Oh, forgot I gotta do the dual brake squeeze. We got our flashing. Uh-oh. We don't even have her ready. Okay, ready eventually came up. And we're in the power. Here we go. Oh, it's dead, but it was so fast for a second. Look at the battery meter, just went straight to 0. All right, which way do we feel like pushing? That's the question. How fast can we go? That's it. We didn't make it any farther after 16 hours. Now we have a service light. It wasn't that bad before. Throttle. Oh, service throttle. We're done with this thing. I think that's the end of the VX1. Time for a quick reboot. Come on. Please don't say service throttle. Looking for ready. All right, we got ready. Squeeze both brakes. It's moving. Let's turn around. $94.6 miles. I think we put a couple tenths on it. Honestly, this is the farthest we've ever made it with this thing. I'll give it some credit. That is double the distance I've ever gone on this thing. It might come back to life. If somebody wants to leave it on the charger for a couple weeks, it might come back to life. Kind of incredible. We made it almost 2,000 feet this time. And I'm not pushing it home, which is a first. I'm actually riding this thing. All right, there's no more throttle. We just have, oh, come on. We made it another 1/10 of a mile. Oh, we've got the dead battery warning on the screen there. Well, I'm gonna plug it back in, but it probably needs 24 hours before the next test. We've got a new warning on the dash there. I think that's battery sulfated. I'm not sure, but what else would boo salt be? So, interesting. It actually, it still goes. And she's back on the charger, but that is the end of our adventure with the VX1. It's probably not going to get any better. The company Vectrix is fully gone now, so it's not like you can buy any parts. They had a parts store that survived for years after they stopped making the VX1 and the VX2, but now all of those parts are gone, especially the lithium conversions that they offered, and there's a guy parting them out that wants $22 per nickel metal hydride cell on eBay, and you know all those cells are bad too. These ones are bad. They're all bad. They were all made in 2008, so there's really no good cells hanging around out there. So your VX1, if you want to make it work, has to be Volt or Tesla swapped or Leaf swapped. Tons of people are out there doing exactly that, putting EV vehicle swaps into VX1s. Okay, there's 5 or something like that. So tons is a bit of a stretch, but personally, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. When you go to sell that thing, it's probably worth like $500, maybe $1,000 to the right buyer. But for the most part, it's a very cool piece of history that is going to get sold. And now it's time to check up on our WeGo to see if we were able to get any power in those 2 batteries that keep going to 0 after we shut the charger off. So right now we're gonna go ahead and unhook the charger and see if those very first 2 batteries sit at 0. And honestly, I'm gonna go ahead and move the charger back a row and see if we can start charging the next row. So let's take a look at all of our voltages and see if we made any progress in 16 hours of this big charger beating on those things, trying to bring them back to life. The WeGo is honestly in even worse shape. We were able to get that front row up to about 17 volts, nowhere near the 24 we were expecting. And that's 16 hours of charging on those batteries. I'll try to get a little ways away from the charger so you're not having to listen to that hum. But the next row, of course, was down to like less than 7. And the next row was sitting at 10. And the very back row, for some reason, is the best one. And that one's actually at 17. So we're doing okay there. We have a total system voltage though of about 61, fluctuating a bit, but that's way down from like the 78s and stuff like that we were able to get over the last few days. So no matter what, the main charger on the WeGo isn't going to turn on. I did just look up what batteries are going to cost. You can still buy them, of course, because they're just golf cart batteries. And it looks like about $3,000 or 10x what we expect to get for the car. So obviously I won't be putting batteries in the WeGo either. It just doesn't make any sense. We just live in a different world, right? You would never even think these specs were acceptable. If you had to put, you can buy a nice 30,000, 40,000 mile Model 3 for $10,000. It will go 300 miles and charge in a matter of minutes, right? 20-minute full charges, something like that, and have every creature comfort in the world. And it's actually a pretty well driving car with one of the best sound systems that exists out there. For $10,000, you could be driving, you know, it's the Toyota Camry of EVs. Or you could hack this thing back together and only go 25 miles per hour for about 25 miles, and it would cost almost the same, half. It's the same thing. There's no difference in putting a bunch of money in this and putting the same money in a Tesla and driving it for free for a few years. That's absolutely nuts. So I will not be putting batteries in the WeGo. I just want to make that clear. And I'm definitely not doing a Tesla swap when you could just drive a Tesla. But I did move the charger onto the next bank of batteries, and we will see what happens. There's a chance that it comes back to life, but the chance keeps getting smaller and smaller, and I'm spending a lot of money on electricity at this point running this thing. I mean, it's probably heating the whole shop. Sure is warm. But hey, if any airplanes come by and happen to land in the backyard, at least I can give them a jump. I did find out one important piece of info about the VX1. If you're working on one of these and using my video as a reference, which I assume is the reason most people will be watching this, they bought a VX1 and need to know what to do. Obviously, just hit it with 140 volts with those two Meanwell power supplies or something like that, sistered up so you have that kind of output. But the onboard charger that sits up under the top of the fairing there does look for those temp sensors. So if you have any bad temp sensors, which appear to be a very common failure from corrosion, there's like green corrosion all over, not leaking battery acid like you'd normally see, but there is like a haze of green corrosion all over everything on the battery system on this. It looks for the temp sensors, and if it doesn't see them, it shuts down immediately. So that would be why we never had our onboard charger here. So the trick to make that charger come back is reflash this to a different BMS firmware or motor controller firmware, and then you can finally charge it with the onboard. Until then, just let those Meanwell sit there and eat, because apparently they do a good job. People say not to hit nickel metal hydrides with constant current like that, but it's less than 1 amp. And honestly, we're cutting it in half, right? So I think we're charging at 250 milliamp hours, which is wild. So it's barely putting any power into the batteries. I think it's perfectly safe. And at least it has been for me so far. I'm not making any promises, but I would say try to use the onboard charger, reflash the firmwares. It takes a lot of work just to reflash the firmwares too, so don't think that's some easy joke. You have to buy a $200 CAN bus adapter, you have to get the software that was like handmade in Visual Basic to run this thing, and then you can finally go in there, reflash it, reflash the motor controller, the BMS, and the charger. They all have to be done separately, and then you can get around the temp sensors on top of the batteries. So good luck if you're working on one of these. Well, y'all, April 7th, 2025 at 5:37 p.m. I have pulled the plug on the WeGo whip. Unfortunately, the longer we keep working on this thing and charging it and trying it to bring it back to life, we just end up in a worse and worse state. I mean, it's not, I can't really say it's worse because we started with 10 volts system voltage, but now even after all of this work, we're down to about 50. And of course, we've had upwards of 80 at times when we had chargers on all the batteries, and we were getting very close to this thing actually turning on and driving. Even the motor controller wanted to do it, but now that we're charging them properly in banks of 3 at 24 volts, the way we should be to get to the correct voltage the car needs to drive, I've realized the batteries are done. I mean, it's tough to let lead acid batteries sit for 10 years and try to bring them back to life. And the only thing you can really do is try to slam a whole bunch of power into them and see if they might come back. But for the most part, they're done, and I don't think we're gonna succeed, even though we gave it our best college try here. The old WeGo whip is dead and needs about $3,000 of batteries so it can drive again. So this is getting hauled off at 8 in the morning to go to the auto auction, and maybe someone else will try their hand at it, or maybe they'll go ahead and unlock the transmission and swap it to lithiums and have a pretty fun car to drive around, I'd guess. This could be an absolute blast if you had all that power from the lithiums and you up the voltage and reprogram the motor controller, which you can do. You can do everything to these. It's all well-known stuff, and this thing doesn't need CAN bus converters like the Vectrix does. This is just serial. I mean, it's literally an antique. That Curtis motor controller is well documented. So there you go, my adventure with 2 abandoned for 10 years EVs that were just left behind in a barn. And the owner said get rid of them, and you know what? he was right all along. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.watchjrgo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. We should probably just start calling this a we don't go, because that's what most of these things are 10, 15 years after they were built. And our final voltage reading here at time of death, 47 and dropping. So just the meter is enough to pull it down, which is pretty bad. Here we're off it, and we're back on it, 0.1, back down to 0.0. I don't think it'll last long, even at 47. I think it'll be completely dead again very soon. Oh, how the turntables. I just rode the Vectrix an entire mile at under 10 miles per hour. As long as you don't get on the throttle one bit, the battery survives for quite a bit. So I literally just rode all the way out to the main road and back, and I've put on the odometer 1 full mile, which is very impressive, I think. It might actually come back if you just leave it on the charger for a month, who knows? The main charger is not gonna wake up though, so it would be very painful to live with this thing. Just 1 month charge cycle, then you get to ride it one time, and then you wait 1 more month. But this whole time I thought the bike was gonna be impossible to get going, and the car was gonna be the easy one. And the car is the easy one if you spend a bunch of money, but didn't work out the way I thought at all. So I'm putting this thing back together right now so they can come pick it up. And they went as fast as they came. The WeGo is headed out. Honestly, it's a big pain to push this. With 2 people, it was no big deal, but with just me last night, it was a huge pain. But we're not dumping 3 grand of batteries into this thing. And I know some people ask if I checked the water and acid in the cells. They welded the caps onto the cells on this. It has caps that you could turn, and they put spot welds on every side. And if you break them, the case will rip. So goodbye, WeGo. This thing though is ready to go. Unfortunately, it was all I could do to not ride it this morning. It just got another like 16-hour charge session, so I bet it'll go like 2 miles. Too bad. I'll miss you, Vectrix. Like I said, it rode right onto the rollback. Tons of power too, so you know it's pretty charged up after last night.